Hello and welcome. My name is Errity Green and this is Wise Women Television, and today I am bringing you a pick a card reading on your spiritual potential. I want to first encourage you to subscribe if you find that you like and enjoy this reading. You can become a part of this family and community, and I'm so glad that you're here. I also want to let you know before we get started that I do offer personal readings as well as coaching programs to support you in your life, in your work, and on your spiritual path. And right now I have an incredible program out. It's called Spirit Woman. It's a year-long community to nurture your true nature and your highest potential. You can check out those details below or at erritygreen.com/spiritwoman. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I will place a picture up of your 3 card piles to choose from today. All right, so we can now go ahead and get started. So for card pile 1, a lot of cards wanted to come out today and things were even popping out. And so let me gather what's going on here today. Okay, so card pile 1, I'm feeling like your gift has something to do with your vulnerability, your willingness to go deep, your willingness to feel, to be there, to be in it. This also could have to do with that feeling compassion or being in that compassionate space. But there's something here. I'm sorry, I'm just switching my legs. I get uncomfortable, even though I'm seated on a yoga mat. So there's something here about something you've developed. When we talk about spiritual potential, this is something you've developed over previous lifetimes, something that you've worked on, devoted yourself to, committed yourself to. This could have something to do with the feminine energy. Doesn't mean you are a woman or that you identify as a woman. This could very well be just your nature, your intuitive nature, your spiritual nature, your ability to meet people right where they're at, to accept them for who they are, to be able to meet them right where they are, not trying to fix it, make it better, not trying to pull them out of that right away, but just being able to sort of be there, be in it, be in the thick of it, whether it be the real raw experiences of our own humanity and suffering, but you're just willing to meet them there. It's like you've developed this ability to be able to really meet people where they are. And the irony in this is that it supports that transformation, healing, alchemy. We see so much in spiritual circles and spiritual camps and so on and so forth about sort of, things that are still relevant and valid, just different medicines like empowerment, or we even see a lot of coaches and leaders who are like very much that strong hand of the father kind of energy, where it's like that fierce leadership, that fierce empowerment, or that, what am I trying to think of here? Tough love, of like pulling someone out of whatever they're going through and supporting them to shift that or whatever. There's a time and a place for everything, okay? So that is valid medicine, and that might have even worked for you on your path at different times. But what it's saying is your spiritual potential is about, and I feel like for some of you actually haven't developed this fully yet, okay? So you might not be there. For many of you, you are there. For many of you, though, I'm feeling like this is actually something that you can tap into in this life. It's been developed. You have worked on this. This is something you devoted yourself to in previous lifetimes. If you subscribe to that, you don't have to subscribe to that. We could just say that it's potential within you. It's a possibility that's available, but you've devoted yourself to this path, to this work, to this practice. Some of you are very well versed in this. You already know this about yourself. You're watching this and it's affirming everything you already know. It's telling you what your gift is. This is really the gift of presence. So this is that spiritual potential to just meet people right where they're at. And I was sort of differentiating that or distinguishing that from that masculine, fierce empowerment energy. And there's nothing wrong with that. And yet your path is, and the irony is just by meeting people where they're at, they're able to sort of soften, become tender, let go, release, and then transform. There's something about your energy, it actually could make me cry, that when you show up, people sort of melt into your presence. They soften in your gaze. They avail themselves to you, So you might have grown up or even have people over the years, whether you're younger or older adult, that people would share their lives with you. They divulge everything that you would end up hearing about their sort of long biography without having even learned their name. And so you might have homeless people show up to introduce themselves to you and share their stories with you, or other vulnerable people. But it doesn't have to be that was the case. It just shows that people just naturally sort of ripen in your presence. And what's interesting / ironic, and I keep saying that, is because people assume that in order for alchemy or transformation or whatever to happen, that it requires some fierce hand or some strong will or some energy. And that might be the case in a lot of different areas. And it might be the case in different seasons of life for different people. Who's to say? I know I don't have the final answer. But what it's saying here, what's being suggested, is the irony is that softening and that sort of tenderizing that happens when people are with you or around you, under your gaze and your presence, is actually ripening them. So it's interesting that it's not just about like that softening and tenderness where they kind of open and reveal themselves to you. The other side of that coin is they're actually ripening, and they're coming into a place of further abundance within themselves. So that means they're able to awaken in your presence. They're able to be more of maybe what they didn't know that they were, but they're awakening to their own wholeness, to their own presence even. And what's interesting here is your spiritual potential speaking a lot to what happens with other people when they're around you. So what I want to speak to that briefly and just share that it looks like this reading may have a lot to do with service, like how our spiritual potential can be of service to others. That wasn't necessarily the intention, but I guess when we do talk about spiritual potential, we're talking about how we can be of service to others in so many ways. But here, the thing is that for many of you, it's been your own path, right? It's also been your own process, your own journey that has led you here, such that you are either, like I said, you might be newer or new-ish to the path. I don't think it's brand new, but you also might be well-practiced, well-versed in this, and you already know, and this is just affirming that. But this has been a huge part of your own learning process, your own evolutionary journey, and I feel like that spiritual potential, when we speak to spiritual potential, this is something that has been within you and has been tapped in within you, and it's also something that you are able to share with others. So let's see what else is happening here. Yeah, so I feel like there was a time, and maybe this was what sort of helped you in this life, step into this deeper presence or deeper awareness. And I don't know if that's the case. The reading actually isn't speaking to like ties from the past. It's really focused on the now. Although there is a card here that's sharing on, there was a time where you were struggling and in disappointment, maybe a seeming failure, a loss of some kind. It says broken dreams. This could have been the loss of a relationship, the loss of a career path, the loss of a hope or a wish, the loss of something that could have been even a fantasy or a dream, but then it crumbled. And the loss of a dream is still, or can be, as traumatic or difficult as the loss of an actual something, an actuality. But in some way, one way or another, you faced loss, you faced difficulty, adversity, challenge, and struggle. And ultimately what happened within this experience is you had to face yourself, and you had to be in your own suffering, and you had to be in that place of looking at yourself and all the dark or tight or contracted places. And you sort of went through that deep discovery journey, awakening of, you know, looking at the pieces, looking under the hood, and kind of seeing all those layers and fragments and memories and experiences and shadows and paradigms and patterns and relating dynamics and things from your past, things from your childhood. Some of you are also diving into past lives. You may not even have known it, but things that have perpetuated for many lifetimes. Again, this has been something that has been lifetimes in the making if you subscribe to that belief system. But what you found through this was your inner voice. It says that here, right? Spiritual potential. But it's not just, the card says inner voice, but it's almost like what you found was you. What you found was the deepest, truest part of you, the most authentic aspect of you, the closest thing you could possibly really find and call it your highest self in physical form, right? And of course, the other side of that is we're always our higher selves, right? It's always with us. It's not anything that needs to be gained or earned. And yet, through your struggle, your strife, your suffering, through the lifting of all of this debris and all these layers and this exploration you went through, you discovered the deepest, truest part of you. And this is also the same thing, or is becoming equal to your spiritual potential. That was your breakthrough. You were able to find yourself. So there was that breakthrough. You had this, again, this difficulty, this challenge, whatever it was, but it was ultimately your triumph. It was ultimately also your gift. And you were able to then discover your truer self, as well as this gift of being able to be with you as you do this self-discovery and this transformational journey. You were able to be with suffering. You were able to see memories and relating dynamics and patterns and all this stuff. And you sat there, you were a witness for the whole thing. You did it, right? And through this, though, not only of sort of doing that journey, traversing that journey, but also sort of recognizing and stepping into the space of witness to be able to sort of see it all clearly. It was like, you know, being able to kind of see it in front of you or read it in a book, as opposed to like being the thing or being the person experiencing it. You were able to, again, learn this compassionate presence, or this deeper vulnerability, this deeper connection, this, I don't even have the words for it. We'll see what else comes through. But sometimes I struggle to give words and properly articulate something that I feel or sense. But ultimately, it's led you to a new vision or a new path for your life. Now, again, for many of you, I feel like this might be quote unquote old news, meaning this has happened in your distant past, or at least maybe even your recent past, where you traverse through all of this and you come out the other side and you're well aware that this is your path. So this is just confirming that for you. But for those of you who might not be well versed or aware that this is your spiritual potential, the deepening, the gift of presence, the ability to be with, the ability to sit with, the ability to look at, to support people on their journey of transformation, on their journey of self-discovery, on their journey of healing, on their journey of spiritual awakening. That is what you developed as a result of walking with yourself, if that makes sense. So I feel like I was able to sort of word it now in a way that I couldn't before, because there is no one word, right? There had to be many words there to really convey this properly. But you were able to develop a new vision for your life as to how you could be or wanted to be of service. Now, some of you might be doing this already professionally. That might be the case. I feel like for at least a small minority of you, or small majority of you, you're already doing this. You're well aware of this. Some of you are counselors, coaches, teachers, healers, whatever you might call yourself, some kind of modern medicine man or woman, so to speak. You're able to walk people through their journey, partner with them on their journey. It's a really beautiful position or role, like guide. It really feels like your spiritual potential is to be a spiritual guide. That's really where what this is coming down to. And so let's see what else is here in terms of your spiritual potential. Yeah. And so you've stepped into, your greater awareness of your true self. We already talked about this, how you were able to really connect with, through this deep healing, transformation, self-discovery journey, you found the ultimate truth of who you were. And it was something sort of true to your human form, but also beyond your human form. And you're sort of able to walk the line of that and really, again, meet people where they are at in their own humanity and their raw suffering, and also maintain this sort of distance, but not a detached distance, or loving distance, and honoring distance. That distance that can be a guide, right? If we're not the guide, then we're just the person going through it, and we're identifying with it, and we're in it ourselves. But you've developed this ability to sort of step away from it just enough to be a guide for people. And you've been able to, I want to sit with these cards too and see if there's anything else here that wants to come up, because I feel like there is. Yeah, you're acting as a guide for people. That's what I'm getting for this card. Sort of by stepping into your own awareness of yourself, your own personal sovereignty, your own personal empowerment, having walked the walk and talked the talk yourself, having trailblazed this, maybe even not having had much support on your own, having walked away. Even for some of you, I'm getting it very clearly, so I'm sharing it. Obviously, it's not going to land for everyone. Some of you have even walked away from abusive relationships, toxic relationships, but even toxic family households, or families of origin. But you've had to step away from a lot to really find yourself. And again, you've sort of sifted through all this debris, sifted through all these layers to really uncover this gem of you underneath, that it walks with her in this picture. It looks like she's female identified here, her. She walks with this awareness of her own power, of her own freedom, of her own limitlessness. And therefore she's able to then mirror that back for other people, support people in that way, guide them in a similar way onto their journey. Now, I feel like there's a message here of sort of reaping the rewards of everything that you've earned. So you have walked maybe a difficult road, a tough road. It doesn't feel like for all of you, your whole life was filled with trauma. Although that could be the case for some of you, especially if you were sort of, I don't want to say it like this, and I don't mean it literally, I'm saying it metaphorically, but beaten into submission. What I mean by that is life will oftentimes, for those who become more spiritually, we'll say advanced, even though there is no hierarchy, those people who become more spiritually developed or spiritually mature often walk a path of immense difficulty, of a lot of triumph, of a lot of overcoming, of a lot of mastery. And it's almost like when we are faced with adversity and hardship, we are then sort of forced to do the work that you've done and then find ourselves, and then we're in a position to help others, right? So it's like, again, using it metaphorically, life tends to sort of, I don't even like using it, but whatever happens, it sort of frees us of all this conditioning, frees us of all this false pretense, frees us of all this stuff, because you find none of it's working, none of it fulfills, none of it lands, none of it resonates, and you just keep going, and then ultimately you find yourself, true self, more authentic self. And as a result, you've become a guide. So your spiritual potential is to be a guide for others. And remember to reap, this is part of you, this is the reward for your journey. Whoa, that's what this is. I could get a little bit emotional here for you all, but this is the reward for this journey that you've walked. You are now, you sort of earned, and again, we don't have to earn anything, we don't have to earn love or worthiness, but here we are in space-time reality to experience linear time and to go through a journey such as this in a way that one thing leads to another, and you have earned the path or the title or the function of spiritual guide. As a result of your walk, as a result of your journeying, as a result of all that you've done, everything that you've put in, all the self-discovery, all the clearing, whatever journey you've walked specifically, you have earned the role and the function of a spiritual guide because of what you've been through. And only because of what you've been through, you have now been able to discover the spiritual guide within you. So your spiritual potential is acting as a spiritual guide for yourself, but primarily at this point for others. You've done that for yourself. You'll continue to do it for yourself. This is the potential you've already tapped into and realized for yourself. So now at this point, the next natural step would be to act as a spiritual guide for others. So card pile 1, your spiritual potential is being a spiritual guide, which is so incredible. Love that we got to have this reading for you. I'm excited really to share it with you. So please do like and subscribe if this lands for you. Press the bell icon if you want to be notified when other videos pop up. Share your comments below if this resonates. Of course, I do offer personal readings as well as coaching programs to support you. And right now I have an amazing program out called Spirit Woman. It's a year-long coaching community to nurture your true nature and your highest potential. You can check out those details below or at erritygreen.com/spiritwoman. Thank you, card pile 1. Okay, card pile 2. Let's talk about your spiritual potential. So a lot of cards fell out when I was doing this reading, which isn't as common. So I'm going to just get a good read here before we begin. Okay. So your spiritual potential, I feel like, has something to do with, and we haven't gotten to the deeper layers yet, so I'm not saying like where it came from, but like the ultimate outcome or the ultimate vision is success in some way. And I don't just mean like traditional success or traditional models of success in terms of like climbing some corporate hierarchy or whatever. And you know, when it comes to our materialistic consumerist culture, that's not what I'm talking about. Although I do feel like it is relevant for you, card pile 2, and this is something that might very well come easily to you, and you might even be saying, I don't know about easy, but I mean, maybe compared to others or whatever, it very well may be a part of your path or your contract or your agreement if you subscribe to that belief system where a soul enters with some things in mind as to what it wants to experience in this lifetime. I do feel like for some of you, success is a part of that. But what I mean is that success of coming home to yourself, that success of union with the beloved. I don't know why that's coming up, but I'm sharing it because some of you will very much connect with that. But there's some kind of inner union, inner realization, inner awakening, inner wholeness that comes up or comes through or results as a result of your life experience, your life path. Now, it hasn't shown me your life path just yet, but it is saying there is some kind of reward ultimately. It's so interesting because I feel like I got a little bit of that in card pile 1. Very different, and it was at the tail end of the reading, but you eventually, your spiritual potential has something to do with coming home to yourself, has something to do with experiencing success. I do feel like for some of you it is traditional / material success, but it'll be a secondary or indirect effect of, like, it'll be secondary to this spiritual awakening or spiritual union or whatever it is that happens for you. So let's go on to the other cards because I'm not getting too much there as to, you know, the greater details. So let's check in and see here. Okay. So I feel like there might have been a time in your life, whether this was recent, it feels like further back. So this could be childhood or earlier, younger years, but your life didn't feel like it was yours. Like you kind of felt like things weren't adding up, or life wasn't complete, or something was missing, or maybe you felt like, I also feel like This is how you're of service. So this is very similar to card pile 1. So oftentimes, not the gift or the potential, but sort of like the journey it's taking me on in these cards. So oftentimes what happens, and it's interesting because when I said spiritual potential for this reading, I had no idea it was going to primarily speak to service, how we might impact or service and support others. But what I'm finding is in card pile 1 this happened, I'm seeing it happen in card pile 2, is it's really telling us how we might serve others or be of impact to others, which makes sense when we say spiritual potential. And more often than not, the way that we serve others is very much what we needed on our own journeys. And it's the journey we've traversed within ourselves first and foremost. So it's like I might speak to here in a moment how you're of service to others and how this is your spiritual potential, but it's also what happened to you, oftentimes a path that you've walked and had to awaken within yourself. And that's what it's saying, is like you've come to a place of union within the self, you've come to a place of awakening within the self, of wholeness within the self. This is it's your spiritual potential. For some of you, you may not be there yet, but what's interesting is with card pile 1 and card pile 2, I'm feeling like you're already there in a lot of ways, or there completely, and this is just affirming / confirming and validating what it is you already know about yourself. Like, hurrah, you're here, you've done it. We even have that celebration card. So it feels like many of you have sort of taken this full circle, and now you're in a position to be of service, and that would be sort of taking your potential to its fullest realization. And maybe that's why spiritual potential came up with service, is because really that potential, it's not fully complete if we're just using it and utilizing it for ourselves, right? It's if we're also offering it to others. So that feels key, and I wanted to make sure I share that with you. Okay, so the first thing that's coming up here is, for a time you might have felt like things were out of alignment in your life. You might have been the black sheep in your family. I did feel that, so I want to make sure I give words to that. Now, secondarily, as soon as I shared that, though, it came kind of flooding through that you might also support other people with this. Your spiritual potential might be supporting people to bring their own lives into alignment, to bring themselves into union, to bring themselves into alignment. And what I mean is this specifically, because we have two, what I use as my alignment cards are both coming up. So this might have been an issue for you in the past, misalignment, what's coming through right now is maybe you were in relationships that truly weren't serving you or honoring your highest. You might have had to walk away from abusive, toxic, or harsh relationships and dynamics. This could also be relevant to your family of origin. This might also be relevant eventually or ultimately to the people that you serve, whether you're doing that now and you're hearing this as confirmation or later. But alignment, I use this card, comes up a lot for me for alignment. And what this means is, it's like we often have competing selves within us. So we have some selves who want success, some selves who are going to sabotage success because they don't believe they're worthy. We have multiple different sort of actors on this theatrical play that if they're all working toward a different angle, or they're all reading different scripts, they're really not going to be able to create anything in their lives. Again, success is also coming up. So you might support people eventually or ultimately to create success, whatever that looks like for them. Really, that's authentic fulfillment, whatever it is that brings people fulfillment ultimately. But I keep getting success. You might support people to bring their life into alignment with greater success. And really, once you bring your life into alignment, you make success more available or more possible. Okay, so anyway, when we have everyone on the stage, though, all the actors were reading from and working from the same script, you're now working with a united front where you can actually create and produce something. You can actually produce results. You can actually create something, right? And so you might have had to work in your own life of bringing everything, kind of getting your ducks in a row, dotting your I's, crossing your T's inside and outside to be able to bring about the outcomes and the results you wanted to experience in your life. And so now you're able to show people how to do that work, how to do it for themselves. Again, I'm getting very much a vibe of teacher, service provider, some kind of service provider role. So some of you could be counselors and therapists, but I am feeling more like coach, teacher, things like that are supporting people to create more success in their lives. And again, this could be either traditional models or more alternative or holistic models of success. Produce outcomes in their lives, produce outcomes, produce results. So you're helping people bring into alignment. But as I say this, and even though I'm focusing on service, this being your spiritual potential, this is something you likely had to do for yourself as well. Yeah, you're going to help people mature, to grow, to evolve on their path. So while some of you are supporting people with success in whatever version or form that is, creating results of some kind in their own lives, you're also all the while supporting them to grow, to mature, to realize themselves. Because we all know that in truth, at the deepest level, what we're actually doing when we go to create results or produce outcomes in our lives is we're maturing within ourselves. We're developing our own self-knowing, our own self-mastery. We are flowering, we are blooming, we are blossoming into greater maturity, wholeness, awareness of self. And this is really what our soul is seeking. Our soul is seeking this blossoming of self, this expansion of self. That's what our soul is seeking, even if our human tends to kind of nail our desire on like a physical outcome or reward or result. Our soul is seeking the growth that happens through that process. And so you're supporting people on their growth or healing journey. And again, this is very service focused, but if that's not landing for you, this might very well be your potential. It might very well be the path that you've walked, and Spirit might be encouraging you to then share this gift with others. Now, I feel like some of you haven't done a lot of, or maybe at the beginning of this journey, like you haven't traversed this whole thing, right? So you haven't completed the circle just yet, and that's fine. That's why it's saying it's your potential. This is what wants to be realized through you. This is a gift of yours. This is an offering, a contribution that you're able to offer the collective if and when you so desire. I feel like though many of you, especially because the card started out as sort of spiritual wholeness or being in union with self, that you're already there and holding that energy at the tail end of your journey. And not that it ever ends, we're always evolving, and there's no way around that. And yet you're also positioned, well equipped and resourced enough to be able to support others if that's what you so desire. So yeah, you're supporting people again to bring about results in their lives they don't currently have. Okay, so they may be longing for something feels missing, something doesn't feel complete, but what you're going to point them to, and they may not even realize it, but you're actually pointing them to a part of themselves that wants to expand, actualize, strengthen, awaken. So interestingly enough, remember we talked about this already, but it's like they might come to you for a particular outcome or result, and that's fine. A little crick in my neck. Excuse me, guys. I'm a little uncomfortable today. I'm on my yoga mat, which is fine for the first 10 minutes, but then when you start getting to half hour, 45 hour, it gets a little uncomfortable. However, you're helping people bring about these results and outcomes in their lives, and the deeper gift that you're offering is that spiritual growth, that spiritual maturity, that self-evolution, that self-awakening, them coming to know themselves, them becoming confident, them believing in themselves, them seeing something through, them sticking it out and sticking it all the way through to fruition. Like they're developing these abilities and these strengths as a result of your work with them that might at first glance could seem superficial if you are supporting people with traditional success. But in truth, you're doing something deeper. You're working with the deeper layers, and you're supporting them to get all of that in alignment so these other things can be realized and actualized. So part of your spiritual potential is supporting people to create results, outcomes, and success in their lives that's rooted from or rooted in spiritual growth, spiritual maturity, spiritual actualization, self-mastery, and so forth. Okay, so let's move on. Yeah, so I love this. This is my harvest card for this deck. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes I go literally, but oftentimes I read cards intuitively anyway. I don't go by the description or whatever, but this is my harvest card in this deck for some reason. It's just always been that way for me. And so what I'm saying here is you support people with that great harvest, with that abundance, but it's true harvest, true abundance. It's that deeper realization of self, the manifestation of self, meaning what they actually want inside, and helping them produce that in their physical lives so that they can experience externally who they are on the inside, right? We came here to experience our spiritual selves, our soul selves manifested in physical form. So you support them to experience that. That's what maybe society or a culture calls success, but you help them to access that and then to build, create, or actualize and realize that. And what's cool is, again, it's actually a spiritual growth and spiritual maturity process that's happening and unfolding that's supporting them to bring this out into their physical life, their physical reality. And it's like you also support them to see their true self, their authentic desires, as opposed to anything that's conditioned. Right? Anything that's conditioned is oftentimes really just misalignment. And they might be wondering, why can't I see success? Why can't I achieve results or outcomes? Why isn't this happening for me? They might even think something's wrong with them. And yet, it's because they've been out of alignment. They're following through on conditioned desires like, oh, well, society said this is who I am and what I want. School made me think, or because I was good at this, right? So people kind of assume what their life should be based on what they're good at, or their history, or what happened, or what society says. You help them go deeper, discover what it is what they truly desire, and then bring that to fruition in their lives. That's what they call success. So here's what's cool. What's cool, but I don't know why that's being said. But whatever. What's cool is that this is what this card tells me, is you help other people with their own abundance, and thus you are also gifted and earn quote unquote abundance. You're able to realize abundance because you give them the pathway to abundance. So your spiritual potential, it seems like for you, card pile 2, has very much to do with serving, being in some kind of service provider role, supporting people to create outcomes in their lives, to produce results in their lives, to bring their lives into alignment, which is ultimately a reflection of their deeper alignment within themselves, their deeper knowing within themselves, their own actualization and spiritual growth and evolution. And they're able to create these outcomes in their lives as a result. And these outcomes then are abundance for them, right? This is now considered success. This is abundance for them. This is them reaping the harvest, and thus you support other people to be abundant, and so you are abundant. Your spiritual potential is also to experience abundance / success. We saw that earlier, right? So it's coming back full circle to those first cards. Yeah. It's interesting though, because I'm also seeing you very much value an ordinary life or something close to the earth. You might have simple, sort of homegrown-esque values. So your harvest might look different from traditional models of success. And again, I feel like you're also helping them tap into that. A lot of this reading for you guys, card pile 2, is two sides of the same coin, for you and for them, for you and for them. So what I say about them might also apply to you. What I talk or say about you is also going to apply to them. And maybe that's what spiritual potential is, right? It's that coin, and then we're looking at, you know, both individual and how you impact the collective. But you might show them again that truer, authentic self, that truer, authentic abundance. What is truly abundant for them? What is success for them? What is it that they truly deeply want beyond what they might say to someone, you know, at the park or the beach or whatever? When they say, I want all this stuff, or I want this, you know, what is it that they truly seek? It's really something that they seek within themselves, to believe in themselves, to feel confident, to achieve something, whatever kind of satisfaction or fulfillment. They're seeking something within themselves and truth, and that's what you help them find, and they're able to create this abundance for themselves. You bring them back to source, you bring them back to the truth, to authenticity, as opposed to anything that's conditioned. And I want to tune into this final card here in a second for a moment. Yeah, so I'm getting, again, this path is two sides of the same coin. That's what I'm getting from this card. I don't always love these guys. For some reason, they give me the heebie-jeebies a little bit, but the energy from the card can be different for whatever reading I'm doing. And in this case, I'm feeling like reflections of the other. And so again, it's like what you have learned, you're able to offer others. What you offer others, then you can reap for yourself. It's like this back and forth thing. You know, you might very much relate to the people that you serve, or the people that you will serve. We might call them your clients. I don't know who they will be for you, but in some way you've walked this journey, and now you support them to walk this journey, right? Reflections of the other. And so because you've actualized this within yourself, I don't know if all of you have actually walked this path and done this work just yet. I feel like a lot of you have not, but some of you will have. But because you have awakened a part of you, right? Again, they're actually seeking something within themselves. You're then able to support them with what it is that they desire to create, to produce, or whatever, because it's a part of themselves that they're seeking. You've already awakened that, so you're going to support them to bring that to fruition. Okay, and so then they're able to experience that harvest, that fulfillment, that satisfaction, that success, because you have already done so, at least within yourself, if you haven't actually produced those results in your life either. So card pile 2, your spiritual potential, again, is coming home to the beloved, developing that deeper communion with self, with higher power, really just coming home to yourself, great remembrance, even success, and then to be able to share this remembrance, this union, this wholeness with others that then supports them to experience a greater harvest in their lives. So card pile 2, if that lands, if that resonates, I encourage you to like, to subscribe. Please do share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Press the bell icon if you'd like to be notified about future readings, and check out all the other readings on the channel. I have so many, and they're seriously phenomenal. I do want to let you know I do offer personal readings as well as coaching programs. Right now, I have a profound program out right now. I just said that twice right now, now 3. Spiritual Woman. It's not even Spiritual Woman, you guys. You see my words today. It's Spirit Woman. A year-long community to nurture your true nature and your highest potential. You can check out those details below or at my website, erritygreen.com/spiritwoman. Thank you, card pile 2. Okay, card pile 3. This has been an interesting reading today, you all, because what I have found, and I'm just going to share with you now, I had to learn it through discovery through the other piles. So when I said spiritual potential, I didn't really know where it would take us, but what I have found through the other 2 card readings is that spiritual potential is pretty much like a coin, and then you have 2 sides of the same coin, like how this potential is realized in your own life and then how it's meant to benefit others, because so much of these readings have actually focused on service and impact, and I'm assuming that, and it feels like it's because the potential isn't truly or ultimately realized or complete until it's then gifted or given over to others. So I feel like that's why we're tapping so much into that today. But we'll see what your card readings have in store for you specifically. Yeah, so card pile 3, your spiritual potential is learning to trust deeply. We're talking like the deep, hardcore, visceral, felt sense of faith, of trust, that kind of no matter what, trusting all the things that come up for us on the path, whether, hell or high water, whether good, bad, or ugly, whether it looks like a monster, it looks like a fairy, but trusting what life brings to the table, what life brings to us, trusting that, not only that, just trusting in it, knowing that it serves, and also recognizing that it serves our highest good, it serves our higher good, it serves the greater good, it's ultimately serving. But the thing is I don't even feel so much that it's like this trust that's good for you. It's just trust in general. Like, that's how deep this trust is. It's trust for the sake of trust. Not even trust because it's good for you. Trust because it does this. Trust doesn't even, like, I'm not even feeling an outcome really. It's like just trust. Trust because trust because trust. Trusting for the sake of trust. So I don't know if this is something that you are embodying now or occupying. I'm not feeling that energy well enough or specifically enough yet. We might as we get into the deeper layers of the reading. But here's what's interesting is I feel like most of us do learn trust through, I don't want to say this is always the case, but most of us do through experiences that don't feel good to our egos, right? Through adversity, through challenge, through strife, through hardship, through struggle. That's when we tend to learn over and over again, time and time again, to trust. So many of you may have walked a difficult path. Now, I'm not feeling like tons of heavy energy just now or like immense difficulty, like you've been wading through mud. But if you're feeling that and you're watching this, then yeah, right, it makes sense. Trust. You're learning trust. No matter what, trust for the sake of trust. And you're like, F you, lady, because nobody wants to learn trust. Not the human, not the ego anyway. But all of you have trusted well enough to, I feel like many of you have come into this place of a lighter state of living and being, of being able to be more carefree and let loose and let go and be more flexible, because you've recognized that there's really not a lot to hold on to. There's really no point in working or striving so hard for any one thing, because anything can change in any instant, in any moment. You've sort of learn to hold with innocence, hold gently, hold lovingly. Like, whatever comes into your life, you love it, and you love it as it leaves. And then something else comes into your life, your sphere, and you love it, your sphere, and then it leaves. It's like you are very much operating with the winds of change, the winds of time. You're in the moment, and if whatever leaves and goes, you bring on the next moment, and you're here, and then you let it go, and you've just found this lightness of being, this lightness of spirit that feels so gentle and soft and easygoing and carefree. It's like you might have sought for freedom for such a huge part of your life, and what you never realized, or maybe just recently recognized or realized through your growth journey, through a lot of maybe even pain, suffering, and so on and so forth, is that it's really this wasn't an intellectual enterprise for you. This was very much lived, felt, sense, visceral experience. And so maybe this won't even necessarily land for you, but I think you'll get it when I say it. But it's like you've learned that all that stuff, that the difficulty comes because we hold on tight, we grasp onto it, and we don't let go, and because we're attached, we hold on tight. You realize that that's actually what causes pain, strife, and suffering. You've realized that our attachments to being right, or to doing well, or to a certain person, place, time, activity, that attachment in and of itself, and again, I don't think you learned this through the intellectual enterprise. I feel like it was very much through lived experience, lived raw experience, that over time you just learn to embrace, to just be here. And it's like, I feel you, like you're sitting there in this whirlpool of life, and changes come and go all around you, and you just sit there. You're all the same, no matter if it's high or low, up or down, left or right, black or white. It's like you're just there, and the winds of time, the winds of change can move around you, and you're just as at peace, just as effortless, just as in flow. This lightness of being remains no matter what, because you've learned that within this whirlpool or tornado or whatever we want to call it, you haven't held on to anything and tried to hold it really close. You know, you haven't said, no, I want this, or no, I want to keep that. You know, whether it has to do with old difficult memories, identities, or whether it has to do with, again, people, places, things, even patterns. You're not going to be, you know, the winds of time, the winds of change, they come through, and you learn to ease up and you let go. That's your trust. Your level of trust has brought you to this beautiful space of lightness of being, such that, again, that freedom that you might have sought, you have discovered that is never going to be found in sort of everyday life, material world, the matrix, and all these conditioned spaces. It's only going to come from ultimate trust and flow. It's ultimate presence, just being here now. Whatever comes must come, whatever goes must go. And it's like, you know, whatever comes to you in the moment, you're not holding on to it to keep it for the next moment. If it goes, you let it go. And that could be a state of being, a state of mind, a feeling, a sensation, an idea, a thought, a dream. It could also be someone coming into your life, a partner, a friend. You know, if it leaves, it goes. If something, your toaster breaks, you're not going to go seeking to, oh, let me fix this and try to force this and solve this problem right now. It's like that lightness of being, if you just let it go, and then you might find yourself 2-3 weeks later at the store right in front of a toaster. You're trusting the patterns of life. You're trusting the rhythms of nature. You're trusting the seasons of life. And again, you found this beautiful lightness of being to where you could just be carefree. You know, you live in this state of even bliss, I could say, and I could even say this is bliss. And if you didn't know it, it is. So you might have even found this within yourself already, and or you're not there yet, but I'm now telling you through this reading that this is what's available to you. This is your spiritual potential to be able to realize this freedom. This is inner freedom you're seeking. It's not that outer freedom that you feel like you need or require, that someone has to give it to you, or, you know, you're a prisoner unless, you know, you're free in some certain way. It all has to do with your level of trust and your ability, willingness / receptivity to let go. And that's where you're going to find that freedom that you seek, that carefreeness, that lightheartedness, just to be here and to enjoy and to be in bliss. It's going to come from that lack of attachment or grasping on or holding on tight to any one thing. It's going to come from being here and allowing what comes to come, allowing what goes to go. And that's it. Like, I wish I mean, I know I've kind of spoken to that quite a lot here already. There's not much more I can say about it, but it's such a beautiful, lighthearted, easygoing, carefree energy. This is available to you. If it's not available yet now, you're not occupying that now, this is the potential that wants to be realized through this lifetime for you. And I feel like a lot of you maybe step into this in your elderhood and your elder years, after sort of, if you have kids, the kids have grown and you're sort of out of the working world and sort of like those mainstream cultural activities and day-to-day tasks, because there's a lot that's required in there and a lot of gears are moving and stuff. But I feel like you ultimately find this, if you have it now, that you do later, and it comes from that felt sense of trust that you've kind of given your life over, the reins of life over to God, to Great Spirit, higher power, and you let it all be, no matter what it is. Beautiful energy. So let's see here what wants to come through for your next spiritual potential here. Yeah, so again, we talked about that kind of strife and struggling and struggle, or suffering or whatever. You might have been through a lot of difficulty at different times in your life, stressful situations. These are things like, you know, out of nowhere, the washer breaks or the car breaks down. So you might have had a lot of like practical accidents, you know. You might have had a lot of like, the roof is leaking or the toilet's leaking again, or like random things like that, you know, happen to some people somehow more than others. And of course I say somehow, but clearly it was meant for you, because all the day-to-day stress and all that stuff like you were experiencing also might have dealt with difficult or even heavier strained relationships at times and had to work through a lot of that. But I also feel like this points to or reflects the deeper work that you've had to do to clear out the conditioning of the past, like this sort of matrix that, or any kind of matrix that you subscribe to around who you have to be or what you have to say or what role you have to play or whatever. It's like you've had to go through a lot of your conditioning, maybe even expectations that you have for yourself based on standards that were held for you as a child, and you've internalized them, and now you're kind of, it's you versus you. Like you think it's you against the world in the ring, but it's actually you versus you. And you realize, holy shit, this is just me versus me. I can drop this at any time. But it's like you went to bat with yourself a lot, did a lot of healing work, faced a lot of shit, whether in life, relationships, or otherwise, but also day-to-day stress stuff. So like you've kind of been through the thick of it in terms of burden, in terms of not feeling free, in terms of feeling caged or held down or held back in some way. And you may not have felt that deeply, right? You have to apply the energy to how it showed up in your life, but it's like you dealt with a lot of that stuff, and that's actually what brings you into this position of, again, being able to then free yourself from it. The irony is that we tend to learn so much of a certain quality or trait or characteristic or awakening of the self through the opposing force, through the opposing experience, through the polarity. So we learn trust and faith through things that do not seem like we should have any trust or faith in them whatsoever. We learn freedom and ease of being and carefreeness and all of that stuff. Carefreeness is not a word, I recognize that, but we learn all of that through stress and challenge, and through difficulty and freeing of our own conditioning. So it's like how, you learn ease through heaviness, or lightness of being through heaviness. You see what I'm saying? How we tend to learn the opposite ways, but I feel like this is your potential. So you might be there now and know that this realization is happening ongoing, and is a potential result and outcome in your later years, if not already now. Okay, yeah. So again, you might have seen things differently for a time. See how she's sort of caged and imprisoned and feeling sort of held back, held down, almost like buried alive, and feeling like, how does she get out of this? And you kind of develop this hypervigilance or franticness, and maybe that happened for you years ago, or you're feeling it now. I feel like some of you for now, but you just feel like, how do I get out of this? How did I create this life? Is this what was meant for me? And maybe even sort of buried by not just standards and expectations, but by all of the tasks and the things that you have to do and the things that you have to complete. And then an accident happens, or a roof leaks or whatever, and you're like, and it's like, ultimately what comes out of that is the crumbling. Take a look. All of this stuff around her crumbles completely and makes way for new birth. All of that crumbles and goes away, so that eventually she can realize, this is a gal here, that's why I say she can realize a new birth, a renewal, a regeneration. Look how light this is. A lightness of being, a carefreeness through all of this. Take a look at her, right? And this is just how I'm seeing this particular card. It might not always mean this, but that all crumbles over time because you decide just to let go. Pretty much you say fuck it, but in a way that's not like fuck it, you're angry and bitter and resentful and unfaithful and untrusting. Obviously that's not, you might find yourself on that path sometimes, right, to get to where you're going here, but your spiritual potential is actually about getting to the point where you say F it. You're not even gonna strive, try, effort so hard and do all these things to try to hold up all these balls. Like, what for? Again, look, this guy trying to hold up all these things. Eventually you say F it, just never mind. Life always comes and pops that balloon anyway, so why am I trying to hold all this up? Why am I trying to uphold myself and my life and my home and whatever to all these expectations or ideals or whatever, even values? You might need to check your values, check your actual desires. What is it that you actually want? Life keeps coming through and popping that bubble so that you can let go of all these balls and stop this whole juggle and inner conflict and holding everything up and right? So life keeps popping that bubble, and it's to try to help you find this carefreeness, to help you find this freedom, because it's inner freedom that you actually seek, and it's letting go. Spiritual potential, yeah. Whoa. So ultimately you're emptied. There is a time where you, if you haven't already, and you might even be going through this now, where I feel like this could be for some of you a sort of gentle, natural, effortless process that brought you here, and unfurling and unfolding. Some of you had one big thing where you said, F it, I'm done. And some of you haven't reached this stage yet, but ultimately you sort of surrender. You get onto your knees, you lie down, you say, okay, God, great spirit, higher power, what do you want from me? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to hold all these balls. I don't want to juggle all of this. I don't want to uphold this whole whatever life this is. I don't want to do that anymore. So, this is like gutted, take it all, take it all from my hands. I'm going to let you take care of it. I'm going to let you drive this bus. I'm going to let you take the wheel. I'm not going to anymore. I let go. It's too hard. It's too much. I let it go. I let it all go. I surrender it all to you. And that ultimate surrender then. So you'll see her, how she knelt down. She eventually lies down. She gives it all over to God. She surrenders. She says, it's all yours. I don't want to uphold all this anymore. I don't want to put in all this work anymore. I'm done. And I'm okay that I'm done. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm resentful. I'm just done. I'm okay. I'm done as I am, right? And she lets all this go, and look what starts awakening inside of her. That freeness, that lightness of being, that carefree spirit. Look, new vision, new life, new path, new chapter, new horizon. This just starts awakening very slowly in the beginning, but it's this lightness of being, this carefreeness, this letting go, this surrender that says, I don't have to hold it all. I don't have to control it all. I don't have to do it all. I don't even have to know it all. I don't have to uphold it all. I give it all over to you, God. And then you just let life work its magic. That's your spiritual potential. And look what comes through. New life, new chapter. And look at this, freedom. The freedom that you sought has come through because you let go. Not because the world came in and offered you something else, or a new life, or saved you, or gave you permission to experience something. You didn't have to walk away from your life. You just had to let it all go. You find that freedom. And it's so interesting because I opened with talking about how this was more service or impact based, and I saw that a lot in card pile 1 and 2. I'm really not seeing it as much for card pile 3. Very much could be relevant in some ways, but I feel like for card pile 3, this is very much a personal path, a personal liberation that is either this lifetime or many lifetimes in the making, or sort of always being sort of held back or held down by roles, expectations, duties, tasks, standards, responsibilities, self-imposed prison, self-imposed glass ceilings, and you're meant to break through that. We have 2 what I feel like are very much like freedom cards. Obviously this is trust, but you ultimately trust in God to just do whatever it's going to do. You trust in life to just do whatever it's going to do. You say, I'm not going to try to fix this anymore. Anticipate it, make it work, make it happen, solve the problem, do the thing, hold all the things, hold all the balls. You drop the balls and you say, this isn't for me. It's not my job. It never was my job. I started owning it as my job, and I made it be my job, but that's really my story, and it's not the truth, and I can surrender all this, and I can be free. So your spiritual potential, card pile 3, is freedom. It's inner freedom. It's ultimate freedom. It's true freedom. And this happens, and it's available to you now if you're not already there. I feel like many of you aren't there yet, and I already said that, and maybe you contact this more in your latter years of life or elderhood. For some of you, it is right around the corner if you choose it. But I feel like some of you have that mental story going of, I can't do that now, and I know that's where I'm supposed to end up, and that feels right for me, but I have all these things going on. You still have those narratives going and those stories about all the things that you have to do, and if you're not there yet, that's okay. You don't have to be. Those of you, so there are some of you who are edging toward it, but most of you aren't there yet, and that's okay. But it's saying this is your potential. That freedom that you seek is possible, and it's going to come. And it's going to come by way of you surrendering it all, giving it over to God, and letting all things be. Okay, that's for you, card pile 3. If this lands or resonates, please do like, subscribe, share your story in the comments, press the bell icon. That way you receive notification when other videos pop up. I do want to let you know I offer personal readings, coaching programs. I have a profound program out right now. It's called Spirit Woman, and it's a year-long community to nurture your true nature and your highest potential. You can check out those details below or at erritygreen.com/spiritwoman. Thank you, card pile 3.